If you are sitting in a bar, and if you are ordering 28 beers, and then suddenly some of your colleagues is leaving and is not paying, that's not feasible. They have to pay. They have to pay.
While I am sure a positive agreement can be reached, I am equally clear that no deal for Britain is better than a bad deal for Britain.
So what's going on with Brexit? You know, I thought Theresa May was doing a really good job. She was saying, oh, you know, no deal's better than a rubbish deal, and she was like sort of saying, really, you know, there's no such thing as hard and soft Brexit. Brexit just means Brexit. All the sort of usual rhetoric, and it is just rhetoric, to be fair. But really showing that she had integrity in her rhetoric by saying, look, I'm a Remainer. Well, I'm not. She was saying she was a Remainer. But she had the integrity to think, well, the people of Britain have voted to leave the EU, so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to do it with any half measures. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And then what happens? She has some sort of weird ego trip where she doesn't even bother to even fight in the election. She calls a new election. And, yeah, she wins, but, well, kind of wins. I mean, she had to go in coalition, but didn't have the landslide she meant to have. And Jeremy Corbyn, of all people, suddenly got a lot more support. And I have to say, I mean, obviously Jeremy Corbyn is a complete idiot in terms of what he believes. You know, he is wrong, but, you know, he fought a good campaign. You know, he really did. He got a lot of young people out there voting, and he inspired a lot of people. And that's why, you know, we need to watch Jeremy Corbyn, because, I hate to say it, he is a man of integrity. You know, he's wrong. Believe me, he's wrong. He's a complete moron, to be honest, in terms of what he believes. I mean, he's basically a Marxist. And John McDonnell is a Marxist as well, self-proclaimed Marxist. But nonetheless, he sticks to what he believes. And Theresa May is just this sort of egoist, basically. And because of that, she just had contempt for the electorate. She thought she was just going to win. And now, look at the state we're in. We've got Jean-Claude Juncker saying to us, well, we won't negotiate anything until you agree how much you're going to pay us. And we're basically saying, no, we don't know how much we're going to pay you until, you know, we have these various trade agreements. And it's just a general kind of stalemate at the moment. But it's funny, when you listen to the rhetoric, the way people talk about it on the radio or on the TV, or, you know, Jean-Claude Juncker himself and people like that, because they'll say, well, you know, this is a divorce and, you know, we have to settle things and so on. But then they start using analogies. And of course, as soon as they start using analogies beyond just saying this is a divorce, they drop the divorce analogy and instead start talking about things like, oh, you know, you go into a bar with some friends and you order a load of drinks and then one of you leaves, well, that person's still got to pay for their drink. That's the sort of the rhetoric coming from Jean-Claude Juncker. But no, that's not the correct analogy. The correct analogy is the one you started with, isn't it, Jean-Claude? That we're going through a divorce. And what happens when you have a divorce? You don't pay to leave someone. If you're married, if you're a woman and you've married to a man, and you've built something together, and you divorce, what happens? You split the assets, don't you? And considering the EU has the assets we've been paying into, I want our money back. And of course, lefties will come up and say, oh, we signed the Lisbon Treaty. In the Lisbon Treaty, it says all these details about what you have to pay if you want to leave the EU, and you go through all these hoops and so on. And I'm like, well, yeah, it does. But I didn't vote on the Lisbon Treaty, and neither did you, neither did anyone else. Therefore, the Lisbon Treaty is null and void, isn't it? It was anti-democratic. It was pushed through without any question. We had no choice. And across Europe, in countries where they did have referendums and voted against it, they just made them have another referendum and another referendum until they voted the right way, because the EU is an anti-democratic institution. So yeah, the Lisbon Treaty is relevant. You know, when Scotland were talking about leaving the UK and they had a referendum, were we talking about giving Scotland a bill to leave the United Kingdom? Were we saying to Scotland, oh yeah, you've got to pay us whatever, you decide, you make us an offer on how much you're going to pay us, Scotland, and once we've done that, we'll be willing to talk about trade agreements and stuff. No, we didn't, did we? No, we said, okay, well, Britain is, what, 70 million people? No, 55, something like that. And then you've got Wales, got about 5, you've got Scotland's got about 5, you know, we're 65 or 70 million people overall. And we thought, well, okay, this is the chunk of stuff we've got as the United Kingdom. You, Scotland, are this percentage of the population of the United Kingdom. Therefore, Scotland, you get this percentage of the assets of the United Kingdom. And actually, you know, obviously I didn't want Scotland to leave the UK, but that would be fair. So you take North Sea oil. North Sea oil's owned by, well, BP or whatever, and we get a cut of that. So we say to Scotland, okay, well, you get your percentage of North Sea oil. You get your percentage of the military. You get your percentage of, hell, I suppose, the Bank of England. You get your percentage of all these things, right? And then, you know, you take your percentage, which we'll argue and debate over, and then we give you your share of the assets, and then you bugger off and start your own country. So why the hell are we paying a bill to leave the EU? I want our share of the European Central Bank. I want our share of the all of the projects we've been paying into since the 1970s. Every single institution that we have paid into in the European Union, we should have our share. And then you look at the European Union as a model, okay, financially, because this is where it becomes financially rather than population. You say, okay, well, basically the EU is about a third Germany, about a third Great Britain, a little bit less than a third France, okay? And I say third, a chunk, a massive chunk. And then you've got this little bit from a few other countries that contribute, and then you've got a hell of a load of other countries who don't contribute anything, the majority of the countries that don't contribute anything. So basically, the EU owes us getting on for a third of its assets. Now, of course, the EU would say, well, you know, Jean-Claude Juncker would say, well, that would bankrupt us. We couldn't possibly do that. Get bent. We're not doing that. And I'm like, I don't care. We're leaving. It's not our problem. You know, if you're married and your wife leaves you and you had a house together, you don't say to your wife, well, no, I can't give you your share of the house because I wouldn't be able to live in it anymore. No, you say, well, I'll have to downsize then, won't I? I'll sell the house. We look at how much equity we own together in the house. You get your share of the equity, I get my share of the equity, based upon, I mean, hopefully based upon how much you contributed, although, you know, in divorce law it's usually 50-50 because of the way, the unbalance that we have in divorce law. But, you know, if it was an ideal world, you know, if it was the woman and she contributed, I don't know, what? 25% of the equity of the house and the man contributed 75% of the equity because he was the main breadwinner or whatever, you would pay her the 25% of the equity, you know? So why aren't we getting our percentage of the equity of all of the European assets? If they have to sell those assets, if they have to liquidise their assets, I don't care. We want our share. So why the hell are we having this conversation? It's spread all over the BBC and the media in general. How much are we going to pay? This discussion about we have to decide how much we're going to pay if to have these trade negotiations. And even the people who are arguing with the EU are agreeing, well, yes, we do have to pay something, but, you know, we'll talk about that later. No! We tell them to get bent. We say, look, give us our money.